New.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Womack and I'm presenting my research for my communications capstone while I get ready for the day. It's like 4 p.m. We were given an amazing and terrifying range of freedom for our capstone and how we presented it. So because I like makeup and makeup marketing, I decided to present it this way. And just as a disclaimer, this is not sponsored in any way and should not be used as a basis for full-on research, as my project has a lot of limitations. So while I get primed up, I'll introduce my project and the debacle behind it. So sometimes I like to use this Hangover RX spray by Too Faced to start priming. And then I'm going to test out this Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Primer. So if I look crazy, that's why. This is about research anyway, so it's all good. Okay, so this topic came from my fascination with the January 2018 Tarte Cosmetics Shape Tape Foundation shade range monstrosity, some might call it. I also, as a black woman, am interested to see how other black women that are not beauty influencers might have felt, especially those college age to 30. So for those who might not know, in January 2018, after the grand success of the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer, Tarte decided to create a foundation with the same idea in mind. However, out of the 15 shades produced per the two finishes, only 3 cater to medium to deep skin tones. And of those 3, the undertones are very orange and when asked about this, Tarte claimed it would be coming out later and that they really wanted to launch right now and that they would add more shades later. And they also added that it was winter time and so people tended to be lighter, which did not fly with like a lot of the influencers who heard about this at the time. So many influencers were really hurt by this oversight and they did not recommend the foundation and they publicly shamed Tarte for the act. So therefore, I wanted to know, number one, how can the white norm, which is white as the normal, white as basically the go-to for when it comes to advertising, characters in a TV show, movies, like what the first race that comes to your mind, basically. So the first question is, how can the white norm in cosmetic brand advertising shape young black women's perception of those companies in their purchasing decisions? And number 2, how has the beauty community responded to the Tarte controversy and curated the discussion of it? And so next, while I start my eyeshadow, I'll get into the literature review. So that, you know, it's not like I just came up with these terms on my own, but there's actual literature to back up the terms that I'm using. So anyway, before I get into my research, I wanted to discuss the background research I used to conceptualize the concepts that I wanted to learn about. So these analyses characterize many white viewers' positive responses to programs like The Cosby Show as a form of enlightened racism, whereby white viewers' fear of appearing racist are allied by their negative assumptions or racist attitudes about blacks in general go unchallenged. A consequence of enlightened racism is that black characters are well liked, not in spite of their race, but because of their race. And so they are basically commodified as like the other or something exotic, and in order to fit into the mold and fit into these spaces, they kind of tone down their own culture or tone down their own personality in order to fit in and in order to be recognized. So the second concept is digital media and concept of beauty. So most of what is shown in advertisements is white women. If you look at the list of the most beautiful women in the world, all with an exception of Priyanka Chopra Jonas are white. And brands, obviously, they are in it for the money at the end of the day. And so they want to mimic this in campaigns because that brings money. So that's what Cho found in their research. And the third, one of the third articles that I analyzed was an article entitled "Finally Some Diversity, a Fenty Product Launch Response." So with Fenty's monumental success, Black women in makeup are more and more vocal against brands that don't present the representation that Black women desire. And so they now realize that they don't have to accept what brands put out, but they can confidently reject these brands because they know that there are brands out there that will accommodate them and accommodate their needs. And so that's what this article discusses. And so next, after I finish up my eyeshadow a bit, I'll go into my methods behind my research and how I brought these concepts together to answer my questions. Okay, so now I'm going to get into my methods. So I initially started off with the plan to do a focus group, but things happen, dumpster fires happen, life happens, did not work. And so I decided instead to do an interview. And so I was only able to find one person in such short notice, but that's what I did at first. And with some feedback from my professor and some classmates, they came up with a great idea to also do a textual analysis of like the video of one of the videos that I showed my participant, and also some other related videos related to the controversy. So yeah, I decided to change gears and do the one-on-one interview with one Black college student, and I asked her 12 questions related to the topic of inclusivity, along with showing her the Jackie Ina and Alyssa Ashley video that called out Tarte. Because the information was not enough to meaningfully analyze, that's why I added this second component basically. And so for this, I analyzed 3 videos surrounding the controversy. I watched Black Girls React to Tarte Shape Tape Foundation with Jackie Ina and Alyssa Ashley. Then I watched New Tarte Shape Tape Foundation, Are They Serious? By Alyssa Ashley. And finally I finished up with a Jackie Ina video, I Don't See Color, makeup tutorial, in which the video was filmed in black and white. And at the end you could see what the color she was actually using, and her point in that was to show that she believes that color is important and that it is important to talk about shade ranges and how shades work. So amongst these 3 parts respectively, I noted the common themes and sentiments between each. Then I juxtaposed these 2 segments and narrowed down to 6 key themes shared across the text and interview. So next we'll get into the data, but before that I'm going to finish up this eyeshadow because I'm so interested in this research that that's all I'm focusing on. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to do a trick I learned from the internet and spray my brush with MAC Fix Plus before I put my shimmer on. And then we'll get right back into the research. Just walk around again. Okay, so next we're going to get into the data while I do my base. And so, I'm going to use this little palette here to keep this clean. It's not as nice as Tati's, but it'll do. So, my interviewee was a college sophomore student studying communications. She also wishes to work in marketing communications or PR. And so, some of the questions I asked her were, so number 1 was, are you following any makeup artists, and if so, how regularly do you check their accounts. I also asked, are you involved in the makeup and beauty world in any capacity, such as following blogs, Instagram, Twitter, brands, influencers? She answered Jackie Ina, Alyssa Ashley, and Makeup Shayla as her top 3. And I also asked her, do you believe it's important to follow brands on social media and why? And she said yes, because on their social media you can see what they believe and how they choose to market their products. Then number 4, I asked, how does she make her purchasing decisions and what matters most? Like, what are her negotiables, non-negotiables? And she said price is like one of her biggest things aside from inclusion, because as a college student, it's like, it's hard to afford like some of these nicer products that people push or that she may want to buy. And then number 5 was, how important is representation in advertising? She said that it's very important as a consumer to see herself. It shows that she was in mind when they created the product and that she is welcome to try their product out. And number 6 was there ever a time when lack of representation in a beauty brand discouraged you in any way? And she said, yeah, seeing new releases that she doesn't even want to attempt to use, like, for example, the Beauty Blender foundation. So that situation was when the Beauty Blender foundation came out, and they were mostly a lot of medium shades. So yeah, a lot of people were unhappy about that, and she really felt discouraged by that. And also with the Tarte, that was like one of the worst blows at all that she mentioned. And I asked her, do you believe that there is a white norm in beauty and cosmetics? She said, yeah, lighter skin in general is a standard, even amongst Black women, whether it's fashion or makeup. It just seems that white women, or even light-skinned Black women or other people of color, are the norm. Oh, I didn't even say what foundation it is. I didn't even say what foundation this is. It's the Lancome foundation. That's my dog. I'm using the Lancome Tant Idole foundation in shade 460 Suede Warm. It's one of my favorite OG foundations. And also my interviewee, she named Lancome as one of her favorite beauty brands because she likes their marketing campaigns and their products. So that was one thing also that was interesting for the interview. Not directly related to my research, but I thought that was interesting to mention. And so for number 8, I asked her, what brands does she feel are inclusive? I asked her, what does a brand need to do for you to feel like it's inclusive? And she said consistent effort and diverse models in their advertising campaigns. That was basically the base of what she said. Number 9 was, what brands do you feel are inclusive, not just inclusive overall, but inclusive to two of your identities as a Black woman, a Black person, and a woman, and in that intersectionality, what brands do you feel like cater to that? And she said Lancome and Fenty were the brands that first come to mind. So for number 10, I showed her the Tarte, Jackie, and Alyssa video when they collabed together to talk about the shade range. And so I asked her what her thoughts were after viewing this. So she said she saw it before, but it's been like about a year since she's seen it last. She saw it when it first came out. So the whole time she basically just kind of laughed at their jokes and smiled. And she thought they were very entertaining as usual because these are like influencers that she watches regularly. So it wasn't anything brand new for her. But she did say that seeing it another time kind of reiterated how like disappointing it was, and she was like even more disheartened remembering, like bringing up that old kind of wound wounds, so to speak, about, you know, for what happened the first time. And she said she originally loved the concealer, and so she was very excited to try the foundation because it was so raved about. And then this happened, and though like she was like she might have been able to like kind of figure out a shade or like a combination, she said it wasn't worth it, being that there's so many brands out there where she doesn't have to mix or do anything like these days, especially with Fenty out and Lancome out with their more expansive shade ranges. Next I showed her Lancome and Fenty's Instagram page, and she was pretty shocked to see that after Lupita's campaign with Lancome that there weren't very many women of color on there, so that was interesting. And it also basically reinforced her feelings towards Fenty as a brand. So she was not surprised at Fenty's inclusivity, because she says that Fenty's been doing this since the beginning, since the inception of the launch. It started out with about 40 shades and it's continuing to expand, and so she viewed that as very valuable and very very like uplifting to her as also being a black woman and being like a lover of makeup. And so number 12, the second to last question, asked her what brand would she be more likely to support out of Fenty, Lancome, and Tarte. I asked her to rank it, and she ranked it in that order: Fenty, Lancome, and Tarte. So when I told her, I showed her the names. I didn't give her any type of order to put in her head. I just showed her, like, so these brands, can you rank them for me? And that's what she decided to rank them. And then very last, I asked which brand seems most interesting and has the most interesting products. And she said Fenty, because she said they're constantly releasing new products every month with interesting packaging and interesting shade names. And so she said that was a brand that she really wants to support more in the future and try out, because she said she's actually never gotten a chance to try out a lot of Fenty's products. So next, speaking of Fenty, I'm going to take one of her matchsticks in the shade of Espresso to kind of softly contour. I'm not going to like go too crazy because I'm actually just going to work out after this, so yeah. So that's what I'm going to do next. And usually I just warm it up on the back of my hand, and I take one of these brushes to kind of gently blend it in. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to start powdering. So this is like a new thing I'm trying. I don't know why I'm trying it right now, but I saw Alyssa Ashley do it the other day, so I'm going to try to apply powder with a puff. So let's see. Oh, it's actually not bad. So anyway, so let's get into some common themes that I noticed from the interview. So I came up with about 5 themes that I felt like were repeated throughout the interview. So the first was believing what a brand has to say or what an influencer might have to say. The second was seeing myself. While that's not necessarily a one-word theme, I feel like it was like one of the best ways to kind of encompass that feeling and notion. The third was consistency. She mentioned a lot that it's important to her to see brands do it on a regular basis, being inclusive and being open about their shade ranges and about their policies. And the last was standards. And so next we'll get into the second part of my data analysis, which is the textual analysis. So I'll give a brief description of the 3 videos that I decided to analyze, and then next I'll give the themes I found from those videos, and then I'll give my main takeaways, and I'll answer a few other questions before I get to combining the themes from the interview with the textual analysis. So for the rest of my face, I'm going to use the Becca Hydra Mist Set and Refresh Powder. So this is in the new shade Golden Bronze, and I actually kind of like it. Just trying to figure out basically how to use it the way it's meant to be used, but for what it is, I really like it. So the first video, I kind of already touched upon this, but this was a video entitled Black Girls React to the Tarte Shape Tape Foundation with Jackie Aina and Alyssa Ashley. So in this video, Alyssa and Jackie came together while Jackie tried both finishes of the foundation on either side of her face. and basically she used the best shade match that she could find to kind of compare that. And so they read off the different shade names, and they noticed that it kind of went like beige, light beige, medium sand, and then mahogany. So they really emphasized that a few times in the video. And Jackie also put basically the deepest shade on both sides of her face, and she knows that they were definitely different in shade and undertone, and that neither matched even when she mixed it together on one side of her face. And Alyssa she wasn't trying it in this video because she already had her own video talking about the foundation, and that's what I'll get to next. So the next video was, I just don't know how I feel about powders. I know people say like, oh, people with normal skin are so blessed and blah 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 blah, you guys should be so happy and blah blah, but honestly it's really difficult and it's really hard, and you know it is.
I would never come for the camera like that.
I'm coming for you, you people who say that. Oh snap, drop my powder. All you people who talk about us normal skin people like we're nobodies, but in reality, everything is oily skin, dry skin, combination. But what about us? Us with the balanced skin. You know, it's really difficult because some things are just too dry and mattifying. Some things are too moisturizing. And it's just like, if I go on too much of one extreme, then my face gets all crazy. And it's not easy being in the middle. That's all I'm trying to say. But I do recognize my normal skin privilege. Let's get back into the research, shall we? So the next video is New Tarte Shape Tape Foundation. Are They Serious? By Alyssa Ashley. And so in this video, she basically, in the first few minutes, she tried both foundations on both sides of her face, and she was kind of able to get a match, but she wasn't particularly happy with it. And one thing she noted was that while she can find a match because she recognizes that she's like lighter skin, so a lot of times it might be easier for her than like black people of deeper skin tones, but because she views her viewer base as very important to her, and so if most of her viewer base or some of her viewer base can't use something, then it matters to her and it's something that she doesn't want to endorse. So basically that's what she discussed, and she discussed that she was just very disappointed in Tarte and this range, and that she wasn't buying their excuses, because she mentioned that there are other brands who like may have not known better, or like before this age of Fenty and everything came out with poor shade ranges, but she recognized that some of these brands, they tried to come back from it, and they enlisted people like, for example, Too Faced enlisted Jackie Aina to expand their shade range and help them curate those shades so that the undertones and shades matched the people that they were meant for. And so she basically noted her she basically said that she felt like it was a slap in the face, and that it was very disrespectful to come out with the range and give the excuses that she felt Tarte gave. So the third video I analyzed was I Don't See Color, a makeup tutorial by Jackie Aina. And so this was intended to be humorous, but also educational, to show that she wanted to show that she believes that shade does matter, because a lot of people, after she responded to the Shape Tape controversy, people said that she talked about race too much, that she talked about shade ranges too much, and that she talked about inclusivity too much. And she said, okay, since you guys say that color, like that you don't see color and that it shouldn't matter, then she recorded a black and white video basically of her applying things and making comments about it, to kind of comments like poking at the different brands or industry to kind of bring, I guess, light to the situation that she cares about. And at the end, she basically had different colors all over her face. And she said, if color doesn't matter, then why do I look like this? And then she kind of addressed the controversy again, but as a whole, not just with Tarte, but other brands. So these are the themes I found from my video textual analysis. The first being inclusivity, care, accountability, disrespect, shade range, afterthought, and we. So both Jackie and Alyssa, and also my interviewee, used the word we a lot to kind of, I guess, bring to light that they didn't feel like it was just a problem affecting them, but they said that their community as a whole, their followers, their base, they as a whole felt like what happened with Tarte was a slap to the face. These are their words. So now we're gonna get into the takeaways from the textual analysis. So so like one of the first takeaways is that they both Jackie and Alyssa Ashley have trusted and trusting fan bases. Jackie has 3 million subs and Alyssa has almost 2 million subs. And these subscribers, they comment a lot on their videos. They're very interactive in the comments. In both the videos, Jackie and Alyssa Ashley both mention their fans a lot in the video, and about how much they care about what their fans think and about their ability to use these products. Also, I noticed that generally people take their word and decide whether or not to agree with the influencer. And also, for the most part, people seem to agree with them, as seen by the like to dislike ratio, which was very drastic in favor of the like side. And I also noticed that they constantly used we, like I mentioned earlier, and whether or not they recommended the product. And so there's a sense of togetherness, and the viewers move together with the influencer from brand to brand or from opinion to opinion. I also noticed that they use a lot of buzzwords, like popular words that are going around, like injustice, inclusivity, accountability, and all types of words that people are using a lot nowadays. And lastly, I noticed that people who look like them might strengthen or change their opinion, as seen by my interview earlier when she watched the video again. It further solidified her views because she says she trusted Jackie and Alyssa Ashley's opinions and what they have to say about these brands. And so one of my first questions that I wanted to answer based on this textual analysis was, how do the influencers feel about this controversy? So first, they felt hurt and disrespected by Tarte. They felt it was purposeful and that black women were afterthought. They also said that they did not buy Tarte's excuses and that they highly did not recommend the product, especially due to the lack of accountability afterwards. Other brands grew in inclusivity, such as Too Faced with Jackie, and a few other brands who acknowledged their limited shade range, but Tarte refused to acknowledge it, according to Jackie and Alyssa, and that was really big to them. And it also changed their respect for Tarte, even as they're now trying to redo their launch with the newly formulated foundation range called the Face Tape. They completely took off their Shape Tape foundation and put that instead. But people like Alyssa and Jackie Jackie chose not to review it from what I believe, and Alyssa reviewed it but wasn't particularly impressed because she wanted to see the consistency first and see that if they were doing it just because people complained or not. And one of the next questions I wanted to answer based on this analysis was, what does it mean to be an influencer? Like, what is being an influencer? So the next question I wanted to answer with the analysis was, what does it mean to be an influencer? Like, what is it? Before I can talk about how they might shape the narrative. So, to be an influencer quite literally means that they have influence. I'll talk about this. I'm gonna finish my face. It quite literally means that they have influence. They have the power to make a change and change the opinions and narratives surrounding different controversies or launches. And for example, Jackie with the Too Faced Foundation, because Jackie is very outspoken on her social media platforms about inclusivity and about you know, wide shade ranges for not just Black women but other people of color in general. And so, because of her influence and because of her outspokenness, Too Faced partnered with her to expand their shade range, and also NARS did something similar, collabing with her to promote their shade ranges and additions that they made. And so basically, from this analysis, I took away that it means to have an impact by being the moderator between the brand and the consumers. We have a lot of influence between that, and because influencers are relatively new when you look at the wide history of cosmetic advertising, and so it's a new occupation that people are taking on to kind of connect them to their consumers and shape that narrative. So before I get to the next part, we're going to add bronzer. And so my favorite bronzer right now, basically the only one I use, is Anastasia Beverly Hills one in Mahogany. Okay, so there are some technical difficulties, so we're switching to a new filming situation. So anyway, we're gonna get back into it with the juxtaposition between the interview and the textual analysis. So some common themes I discovered were talking about disrespect, not being cared about, Black women needing to unite, and Fenty. So the main three themes from this entire project that I discovered were that everyone across the board talked about inclusivity, accountability, and being ignored. These are mentioned consistently and by direct wording in nearly every video and in the interview, like I mentioned. And so we have finally reached the conclusion and implication section. So what I found is that representation does seem to have some sort of positive effect. Well, I can't connect these completely because that's beyond the scope of my research, but across the board, all the people that I've either observed or interviewed talked about how representation does really matter and who they choose to support brand-wise and influencer-wise. And also representation does seem to affect brand support and affordability, as seen by the person I interviewed, seems to moderate how much, along with influencer thoughts. And so all in all, the general consensus that can be drawn is that women of color felt ignored and slapped in the face by the lack of inclusivity and whiteness as the baseline served first. And so until brands show consistent accountability, these people in the study say that they will no longer be supporting Tarte and brands doing similar things, and that they won't start supporting again until they see that the change is consistent and that it's not out of obligation. And so just to return back to my questions, to reiterate, so my two questions were, how can the white norm in cosmetic brand advertising shape young Black women's perspective of those companies and their purchasing decisions? So as I said, these people really lost a lot of respect for these companies, and it really affected where they decided to spend their money. And the second question was, how has the beauty community responded to the Tarte controversy and curated the discussion of it? So the influencers had a big impact in this whole narrative of the controversy. So like these influencers, like the people who watched them, they wanted to know more about what happened, and these influencers said it, and they also said that they would not be supporting these brands. And because people tend to watch these influencers to get the inside scoop about a product or about a brand, they usually end up agreeing with them or maybe falling somewhere in the middle. And so the community really responded negatively to it, and they really took control of the discussion around it. And so finally we're going to get to my limitations. So obviously this is a project for a class, and it's very small scale. It's for my Communications 490 class, which is a capstone class at University of Michigan, where we, like throughout the semester, we work on a research project on a topic of interest. And the overarching theme for my capstone class was feminist media, and so that's why I really wanted to focus obviously on women, and also as a person of color focus on people of color. And so that's what made me decide to go this route for my study. But of course, to publish a real study, I would need more participants to compare, potentially even some non-people of color, and especially non-black people of color, to kind of compare thoughts and feelings. And also, while I interviewed a stranger, there was still slight selection bias because I asked a large group chat, like based on the same major, and so they might have a different perspective and way of thinking as a fellow comm major. And finally, I conducted a textual analysis of only 3 videos. I would have liked to observe more, but it does take a lot of time. And in addition, I would have liked to view some videos surrounding the controversy by non-black women or non-people of color. And so, just to like end everything else with a little setting spray to set everything in place. That tastes good. Hope you see you all soon, and God bless. Thank you.